Look into the darkness. Find the blazing star and let it become the eclipse. Don't fear purification of the soul. When the soul resurrects,
Welcome back to the Occult Rejects. Well, looks like we lost Bennett on that one. Must have scared the shit out of him. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And no, Prometheus, that was not an acid trip. That was cult symbolism. You probably didn't understand. But as we get into the show, we're going to introduce everybody else that is here joining us. Judith, the Loon, what is going on? How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. And you could reach me on YouTube and on X as the Loon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you making it tonight. And my man Headless, what is going on, sir? How are you?
How you doing? You can find me on Twitter with the Headless Giant, and YouTube with the Headless Giant, and also on Instagram. And tomorrow we've got more remote viewing. I can't wait to see what Nick has picked out for the pictures that we're going to be remote viewing. So check that out.
Yo, I was thinking about that as I was sitting down for the show. I was like, oh, fuck these pictures. Yo, I started getting nervous. I was like, wait, is today Thursday? I was like, fuck.
you got very much.
Yeah, no, I was like, I'm going to have to get all of them tomorrow. I already got a couple of ideas. Bennett, my man, please. Thank you for joining us. I was really hoping you'd make it tonight when we had Steven on anyway.
Yeah. Bennett Tanton from the Broadcasting Seeds podcast. You can find me at broadcastingseeds.com and BennettTantonBooks.com.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, do you want to advertise any of the things that you got pumping out?
Man, I've been writing a lot.
I know, that's why
over the past 3 to 5 years, but I've just published like 4 books in the last like 2 months. So
yeah, that's why I was like, yo.
Yeah. So just check it out at either on Amazon or BennettTantonBooks.com. A little bit of stuff for everybody there.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Cool. And Steven, from the Biblical Hitmen. Please let us know what's going on and where they can find all your guys' amazing work.
Yeah, first of all, everyone, thank you for a nice warm welcome, man. I love the panel stuff. Nick, thank you for having me on, man. Yeah, I'm Steven, the Biblical Hitman. People could check out my channel on YouTube, and I'm on audio platforms as well.
Awesome. And sorry, I can't even remember anymore. What was it? You've covered another topic on here before in the past. What was that again?
Yeah, it was like more like the Mark of the Beast technology, which is interesting because it kind of adds on to what.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of like going in the same area. But yeah, if people enjoy this show, which I'm sure you will, because the guy brings some excellent research, go check out the other one that we did. Just look up Biblical Hitmen and the Occult Rejects.
Yeah. I had you on my show too, man, and it was a pretty awesome conversation. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yes, that's right. That was actually a really good interview, to tell you the truth. Yeah, thank you. But so Steve, how did you end up getting to Raëlism? I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Raëlism, Psionics, cloning, and the divine feminine. How did we get to all that in one thing?
It's really insane, right? First, before I get into anything, like I'm not a historian. I'm just an independent researcher, podcaster. I like information. I like making conclusions for myself. What brought me to all of these topics is just kind of the journey of digging into multiple things to see if anything connects. And really, it all does kind of connect. Raëlism, psionics, cloning, and the divine feminine. Raëlism was an experience. Was an experience from a guy named Claude Vorion. Psionics is like where the state of the UAP phenomenon is at right now, because I've been kind of obsessed with that topic lately. But that topic alone is like kicking a can down a street, and the street is just 10 miles long and then gets longer when you think you get to the finish line. Could be wrapped up in multiple psyops or whatever. But I enjoy listening to people's testimonies and stories and experiences. And from doing that and digging into that, I can see that there's a divine feminine connection overlaying everything, and probably including cloning. Cloning is more connected to Raëlism, but as far as we can see today, that was blasted all over on X. There was actually, a female humanoid robot that walked out with Melania Trump, or however you say her name. And it looks like they're going to start to put robots into the educational system, which is interesting. So, and where cloning comes in, it's just, how sophisticated is science right now? And what are they trying to do? And what's interesting is I'm wondering if a lot of these people, right, that want to clone and to transfer their consciousness into clones and to live forever, with everything going on right now, just with Israel, the Third Temple, yada, 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 it seems to be falling in line with Raëlism, which is very interesting. This was something that started in, like the 1970s. Raël was the name that these Elohim gave Claude Vorion, right, in his first encounter with them. And his first encounter, which he was kind of walked into this encounter before he actually had the encounter, by like a mind speak voice, intuition, I guess you might call it, where he felt led, like something was leading him to the location where he had the experience. But the experience took place on December 13th, 1973, while he was walking alone in a crater in Puy de la Solas volcano, which is near Clermont-Ferrand, France. It's like the central area of France. Vorion saw a red flashing light in the sky, and he said that it was a craft that descended down and landed right in front of him. He said the shape of it was in a bell or like a cone shaped, which is very similar to like in the 1940s when some of the first flying saucers were seen and stuff. As this craft, landed right in front of him, this platform kind of lowered out of the disc-shaped bell craft, and what walked out was a very small looking gray humanoid being, right? Very short, around, I think it was like 1.2 meters or like 4 feet tall. He described this being with pale greenish white skin, long black hair, a small black beard, almond-shaped eyes, and wearing a green one-piece suit.
It had a beard?
Had a beard.
I don't think I've ever heard an alien with a beard before.
Well, I'll tell you what kind of ties into this is
motherfuckers need to shave too.
Like you guys are familiar with Rebus, right? Like that whole concept of Rebus, right? So it's a male and feminine head in one body, right? There's a duality, a balancing of masculine and feminine energies. And that's one thing that he characterized these beings to be above all of the other characteristics. But specifically, there's one more characteristic that he threw in his later in his book, where he described these beings to be ultimately feminine with male characteristics, right? And he said, with the long hair and the beard, this is where you kind of get this androgynous kind of appearance. And this is what made him think this. But when he was further in his contact, this is happening right outside the ship. They claim to be the scientists that engineered humanity, right? These beings, this is what they're telling him. They are called the Elohim. This is what they call themselves. But the one that was specifically encountering with Claude, he said that his name was Yahweh. And there's this other section of the civilization that is rebellious against them. It's kind of like the Enki and Lil, all of that idea behind all this. But what he described, when he described their femininity, if I said that right, he compared it to women here on Earth. And so the women here on Earth were only 10% of the capacity of how feminine these things were actually presenting themselves. So that's interesting. I mean, I don't know what you guys think so far with the experience, because this kind of ties in with, well, he was also told to write books, right? He wrote 2 books. And it seems like maybe this encounter could be connected to like an Aleister Crowley encounter with Lamb, or Puharich and the Nine, right? So there's like been multiple encounters with non-human intelligence, and that's kind of what the government is identifying these things now as, because the phenomenon keeps kind of growing and getting bigger. They're investigating more, and they're, who knows, like maybe it's an archon idea if you're into Gnosticism or whatever, because it seems to be that there's multiple races, this, that, whatever. And ultimately, yeah.
Sorry, no, go ahead. Finish.
No, it's like ultimately what these Elohim did with Rael is they evangelized to him, and they told him to reinterpret the Bible. They told him that they await a return. And before they can come and return, there's a few things that have to be established. Borders have to be destroyed, right? There has to be no nationalism or sovereignty in a way that the elite are to be the ruling class. And the elite are not like how the elite are today. They want their elite, their group, to be like the smartest people, like the experts, right? We can see that in propaganda today, that everything is like experts say this, experts say that.
Technocracy.
Yeah. And so when they took Rael, right? Rael went on the craft, went on a voyage, and ended up going to their planet. And on their planet, this is kind of how the civilization is ran now. The population is low, it's controlled. People are balanced with their energies, and what they do to sustain life is they take pieces of their biological structure and they incubate it and they merge it with technology, like a cyborg, right, or a robot that has your cell structure. Because I think the blood and the DNA is very important when trying to make a clone to sustain life. I think this is why Epstein was involved in DNA. I think this is why he was involved in dark matter, dark energy, and also involved in, artificial intelligence and having connections with Marvin Minsky, who's the godfather of artificial intelligence. Also having connections with Hanson Robotics, who created the first humanoid robot and named it Sophia. So there ultimately is a divine feminine layer that is over pretty much everything that I've kind of mentioned so far.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed looking into Raëlism, because you and I have talked about this before.
That's right. I talked about it on your show, actually.
So I did some digging, and it just reminds me so much of like ancient astronaut theory, right? There's just so much of that, like the what is his name? Eric von Daniken, I think, the author, right? There's like so very similar ideas popularized by like him, but they turned it into this full-blown religion. I mean, that's kind of my take, but I mean, it's obviously deeper than that, but it's just one of those things, like you've got a lot of cross-pollination there. So,
yeah. When they were evangelizing to him, they gave him a whole entire reinterpretation of the Bible. I mean, I guess before I get further into this, like, I'm a Christian, that's what I choose to believe in. And when I've researched abduction phenomenons, this seems to be a trend, and it seems to be something that's high on their priority when they're evangelizing to the experiencer. They made him they reinterpreted Genesis, the flood, Tower of Babel, Sodom and Gomorrah, Moses and the burning bush, all of this. And their stance on this is that they've sent multiple messiahs to Earth. And how they've done this is they genetically hybrid them and then impregnate a female here on Earth. This could be like a scientific immaculate conception. Someone goes through an abduction phenomenon experience, they get impregnated, they have a child, it becomes Muhammad. It's just a little kind of an idea, right? This is where they're coming from.
That was the situation though. Like Jesus was just like the first time they tried it out. They're like, fuck it, let's see how this goes.
Well, they actually
they fucking worship the guy.
Well, they've been doing it for a long time, they claim, and they say that Jesus is like really late on I don't know how you'd say it, in the league that they've created. They say that they've created 40 of the prophets, and that Rael is actually a hybrid himself. He had this awakening experience. This whole thing is like an awakening experience. He's self-realizing, right? He's becoming self-aware because of what they're officially telling him. And they say that he is the 40th prophet. Now, this gets into where they discuss their return, right? And I mentioned earlier that there's a bunch of things that have to happen. And the ultimate story over this is that in the 1940s, right when the UFO stuff kind of started popping off, which again, I don't subscribe to a lot of the stories and stuff, but the 1940s started popping off. Nuclear activity was on the rise. There was even just slightly before that, there was what's it called? Operation Fishbowl. They're shooting nukes into the sky. We're detonating nukes above ground, right? Then it changed to we were detonating nukes in the water. We were like, that's not good. Then they started detonating nukes under the ground. But they said when that part of history started, that was the start of revelation. And what you're seeing going around with, I would say, with a lot of influencers is they're saying that we're in revelation right now, right? Like we're in revelation right now. Like for example, one of these guys, I'd like to have a conversation with him, but his name's Ryan Bledsoe, and he says that he's had an experience with the divine feminine. He calls it the lady. She presented to him, and his father as Hathor, right, in the Egyptian mythology and stuff. But the lady told him, it's another experience, right? The lady told him that, we're in revelation, but it's up to us if we want to stop that or not. So that falls in line with Raëlism, right? Because the world has to come to this understanding, almost like a Tower of Babel moment where everyone's like, hey, let's come together. Let's forget about, what we were doing before that, right? And, let's unite and come to like this gnosis and build a tower and become like this utopian hive mind system,
And their symbol doesn't do anything to recruit.
Oh, that's
followers.
A good point. The symbol is
it's
quite that space got banned for, right?
Quite controversial, I'd say.
Yeah, it was the Star of David with a swastika in the middle of it, but then they changed it. They got a lot
of course they did.
They got a lot of problems about that. So then now,
now other religions or other backgrounds that you use that symbol, did they change that because of fucking Hitler? They still use it, right?
Oh yeah, that's a very old symbol.
I just want to like
very old.
I think the Vril Society
before Hitler
established that for
that's what I'm just saying, because of Hitler now though, it always gets fucked off regardless of how you're using it.
Yes, correct.
Right, exactly. And it's interesting, Hitler was trying to start this sort of race, but back to Raëlism, right? So these beings say that they're watching over society. Some people could go to like the Book of Enoch and be like, oh, the Watchers, right? There's some sort of connection there. But they say that they're in invisible ships and they're here monitoring society. which when you think about that, maybe they could be controlling society, they could be controlling the kingdoms, they could be controlling the governments and influencing, if they've got all this kind of high tech to travel through space, number one, and they can, kind of mind speak to you. I left this out, but when Claude first saw the being in front of him, everything that I described about the being, and that there was like this force field, there's like this halo around his head. We've seen depictions of a lot of Messiah figures with this halo around their heads. He said it was like a dark, kind of like a foggy, it was transparent, but you could see that there was something was there. Which is fascinating, because when I start looking into Epstein, why he was obsessed with dark brain, axiom of Maria, and or time delay, and what was the other one? That anyways, it was on his blackboard, and I started looking into that. And the dark matter of the brain, the dark energy of the brain, are things that relate to the unconscious or the subconscious processes of the neural networks, and I think Epstein was, he knew about remote viewing. I think he knew about hemisync. I think he knew about evolving his consciousness, right? And ultimately, I think he was funding it to try and come up with some sort of piece of technology where, instead of going through all of these, let's just say like a 5-stage process, right? Like that Gino Yu talks about, which he's like a conscious fanatic, right? And he comes from a video game background, which kind of makes sense with, the clones and the avatars and all of this. But I'll circle back around, right? The Elohim are monitoring over humanity, and they told Rael, right, to initiate our return. The world's got to kind of come together in this Tower of Babel moment, and that they want an embassy to be built here for them, so they can have some sort of pad to crash at when they come here. And so Rael took that information, and he said that he was kind of like influenced and inspired to immediately go to Israel. This is why the symbol is represented as it is, right? Star of David, which can go back to Rem Fam. It could actually go back to alchemy and the idea of male and feminine coming together, or the 4 elements coming together. They kind of form the same shape. But they want an embassy, and Rael went to Jerusalem, Israel, and spoke to their government. This was like in the 80s, and wanted to build the 3rd temple specifically for the return of the Elohim. And so when you look at the war right now and everything that's going on, I believe it's biblical prophecy, but I also think that there's some sort of connection to the adepts that may be involved in the government there, or involved in the nations around the area. I think it could be that they all understand what they have to do, and they're kind of doing it through different avenues, like war and this and that, because the people have to acknowledge what's going on. They have to understand what's going on. And war is something that's been familiarized throughout all history, all culture. We're all used to it. So it's kind of like they're kind of pushing this agenda through the war, possibly because the IDF soldiers are wearing 3rd temple patches on their shoulder, which, I mean, when you look just throughout history, you can see that anything that warriors put on during war, it was something that they were fighting for, or something that was protecting them.
Well, one of the things I find fascinating that a lot of people overlook when it comes to cults like Raëlism is that these are the perfect environments for ideological laboratories, right? So you've got the Finders cult, which were being protected by the CIA, and they did a whole bunch of weird sacrificial stuff with children and trying to train children into stuff. You got Raëlism. Shortly after they talked about cloning Dolly, they come out and say, we've actually got the first clone. And so this would be, especially with Epstein and things like that, these are the perfect environments to give nut jobs the type of technology to use out on themselves and on their members that nobody's going to believe. Right. So these guys are a UFO cult. What better environment to sort of, inject a bunch of money in there and see what happens when they're given all these really kind of self-contradictory belief systems. And technology that now fascinates the members. So it seems like a big laboratory for me. I mean, after finding out that the U.S. government was involved in making UFO people, basically go crazy and kill themselves, it was like, oh wait, they might be using these UFO cults in a similar fashion. Plus, you've got a lot of different abductions where people are seen behind them wearing military fatigues, and the perfect candidates for that would be a bunch of cultists who, are just going to be a bunch of nut jobs anyway. Maybe they can follow instructions a little bit better too.
Follow instructions a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing I want to bring up,
buddy.
well, just like because I think you had said something earlier that made me really want to bring it up, but it just also helps, like, for people listening. I mean, I think most of the people listening to this show would probably believe this stuff is possible, or people might be doing it. But like, for people who don't think this shit is like, nobody, this shit ain't going on. I had a guest on the show, Carl Abrahamson, even come out and admit that him and Genesis P. Orridge were creating non-binaries through rituals and science. And I was just like, I didn't even know what the fuck to say.
Yeah, it's weird.
I mean, even my co-host Lisa, me and her were just like, okay, and just went on to another question because I was like, how the fuck do I even touch it? So I mean, like, that shit's real. You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody, even not knocking him, but if somebody, nobody like him compared to the fucking people at the top are doing it, the fucking thing's going on up there.
Right.
I mean, there are people who have the money to do it as well. You know what I'm saying? I mean, these are broke ass occultists trying to fucking make tricks happen.
Yeah, and it's when I think of the monetary system, I think about where my money's going. I think about what money has been lost. It's been trillions of dollars that is unaccounted for, that could build a nation. It could build an infrastructure, it could build roadways, it could build corporations, businesses, and government, and everything. And those kind of stories just get forgotten about, right? They'll throw up something that a celebrity did. They'll throw up an IRL streamer or something doing something stupid, and people get distracted, or they get they're not curious about the topic anymore. Yeah, man. Yeah, Raëlism presents itself as a scientific religion. That actually there is no religion. That everything is just is. It's just appeared out of nothing, right? It's just very scientific, more based probably off of like evolution, and all of this stuff. And it's that these civilizations all have gone through their timeline and accelerated in intelligence, and then probably ascended in consciousness, and then now they're coming here to whatever, guide or do all this kind of stuff, which I think ultimately could lead into some sort of deception. A lot of these experiencers, they're so seduced and they're influenced by these experiences that they never question or ask who it is that they're working for. It's like the first thing that I try to, ask anyone that, I'm either trying to find information about or find the fruits about them, right? And I don't think that all the ideas of Raëlism started with Raëlism. Like, I think it was possibly happening even before that. There was Annie Jacobson. She was on Joe Rogan's show a long time ago. She talked about Operation Paperclip. She wrote books about it. When she was talking with him, she said that in the 1940s, actually the Roswell crash, she said she was investigating the story, and she got plugged in with some sort of some retired guy from the CIA that was involved in all of this stuff. And he was on his deathbed, and he gave a bunch of confessions. And she says that he claims that the crash in Roswell was a hybrid human genetic operation, meaning that the craft existed, the technology exists to move the craft, but the beings inside are surgically manipulated to appear as aliens, and which I think could be possible. I don't know if you've ever seen the guys that do all the piercings and the tongue cutting and the tattoos and stuff, and they can mold their occipital bones. They can do all kinds of stuff. They can, at a young age, maybe they could elongate their skull by molding and all this kind of stuff. It's interesting. What I'm saying is I think that side of it could be possible too. Ultimately, I think like the New World Order has to come together in some way, and it's got to come in a traumatic way, because people can't deal with trauma very well, and this could be in multiple different ideas and perspectives of how this looks like. But that's how you really corral people very well. It's kind of like when you want to bring sheep into their pen or whatever, you send the dog out, the dog directs them, and they just keep their head down. They're like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm moving. And so that's kind of realism. I can go on all day about it, but it's kind of funny. I kind of get a crack out of it. I don't know if you guys do a little bit, but it's connecting into the UFO phenomenon, the UFO phenomenon, the UAP phenomenon, the NHI phenomenon, and they're broken up into 3 groups purposely because I think they mean different things. I don't even think they know what it means, so I've kind of given it my own definitions. It's like UFO is like the tech, right? UAP is like the orb, the complex plasma, very interesting phenomenons like this. And then the NHI is kind of like channeling or connecting to other consciousness other than yourself, communicating, going into the astral realm, all this kind of stuff. Which Alex Jones did mention this, and I don't know, I'm not a big Alex Jones guy anymore, but Alex Jones mentioned this on the Joe Rogan show, where he's like, these elites, they're taking DMT, they're taking psychedelics, they're doing all this stuff. They're going into these intergalactic astral realms, and they're having meetings with these either ascending masters or Elohim or whatever it is that they want to identify themselves as. They're getting information, they're getting an agenda, and then they're coming here to this earth and they're performing it. They're trying to fulfill it. And that fell in line with realism. I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of falls in line with that. So where are we at with the UFO phenomenon, UAP, NHI? There's a big thing called psionics. Is anyone familiar with psionics?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever had any experiences? Like a CE5, Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind, a psionic experience where you went out, maybe you had some intent, and something appeared. So that was my first UFO experience. This was around 2017, and this is when the Bob Lazar stuff came out. This is when the Jeremy Corbell documentary came out. Huge hype, right? This is when the New York Times came out about the David Fravor incident in sometime in the early 2000s or something. I think it was like 2002 or something, where who's an F-18 pilot who fought for the United States, has a bunch of credentials, and he was on a surveillance, kind of mission that was practice, and he came across, the pill-shaped craft that interacted in radical ways and kind of almost teleported in multiple destinations that was picked up on radar and all this stuff. But I was in Las Vegas, right? Perfect place to be, by the way. Okay. Because I tell you what, I'm from Florida. It's very low in the topography scale. I mean, I'm 100 feet above sea level. Really not good, right? But when I go out to Vegas, I'm at 2,300, feet elevation, and I feel a little closer to the sky. There's mountain landscape. You can see forever. So it kind of gives you that vibe. We went out to Calico Basin around like 12:30, 1 o'clock p.m., right? The city that never sleeps. And we go out to Calico Basin, which is just off of the west side right there of Las Vegas, not too far, about 5-10 miles, not even. And it's in the Red Rock Canyon. So I'm with my buddy Jesse, who, he used to be one of my co-hosts on the show. What happened to my co-host, right? It's just me now. But love those guys. Yeah. Jesse took me out there because he's like, this is where I saw my first craft. This is where I saw my first UFO. So with everything going on, we watched the UFO documentary, this, that. Obviously, I had some intent to go see something. I didn't really understand what was going on. So we're there. It's nighttime. We're chilling. And he starts howling because he's trying to, I don't know, antagonize something. And boom, immediately a light appeared about 40 yards above the top of the mountain. It appeared. Now there's drones you could fly out there. Me and Doc Brown from Prometheus Lens podcast, we went out there in January. We did the same thing. We were filming with a drone and stuff. So it's something I thought of back then, but the movements it was doing was very, very interesting. Kind of going left to right, circling in like a hemisphere, back and forth. And when we kind of engaged consciously with it, meaning we're evaluating what it is, we're trying to figure out what it is. And as we were doing that, it seemed to be kind of moving in a way to where we just knew that it knew that we knew it knew. We were like, oh, dude, this thing's kind of like locked in. And so when we antagonized it, it came straight down. It came straight down the mountain at like an elegant speed, not in a rush, almost like a drone. Okay, I'll say it. And no noise, nothing. And when we saw it come down, it stopped. When we were like in a panic mode, we didn't know if we were going to egress or progress, or go forward, fight or flight. And so when it stopped, then it really freaked us out. And we got in the truck. And we took off. And as we started taking off down the road, I'm looking through the back window in the back seat, and I can see this thing start to move and come and track us. And then it just kind of vaporized, went into the ether, right? So that was my first UFO experience. And so I didn't know the conscious aspect of what was going on until I started investigating psionics. Psionics is kind of like this new term, right? It's a new term for CE5. CE5 has been popularized by Stephen Greer, who's a guy in the UFO community. He takes people out to see these things. Chris Bledsoe, Ryan Bledsoe, they also take groups out to go and to see these things.
What do you think about Stephen Greer, that fella?
I don't trust him.
I think he's a scam artist.
I don't trust him. He's got a lot of ties with, Rothschilds. He's got a lot of ties with, a lot of the interesting things. When I ultimately see his beliefs, it almost kind of lines up with Scientology and maybe what you would call your ranchism. I don't know. You guys,
that's interesting.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right. So all right.
That ties into the Kellogg's family,
which is interesting. Because when I started to go and to find people that were involved in psionics, there's a team. Psionics is like this military terminology that's been brought up a lot. It's been popularized by, what's his name? Oh gosh, I'm going mind blank. But
didn't a bunch of government employees get hit by something? They called it something having to do with Cuba. What was that called?
The Havana syndrome.
Havana syndrome. Yeah, that would be like the psionics being used on.
Well, I mean, psionics though in general is like, in its like simplest definition, you're talking about like the mind influencing reality or accessing information beyond normal physical limits, right?
Maybe like a double slit experiment. That overlays this phenomenon.
Right. I mean, because psionics, it's what people have used to call telepathy and telekinesis, PK stuff, clairvoyance, remote viewing. That's all psionics, right? Technically. Precognition, energy manipulation. Even people that I've talked to about, like with Headless and Nick with the aura thing, some people say that's psionics as well. So it's kind of this big blanket term, but I think the military, from my understanding, has started freaking weaponizing this stuff a little bit. to an extent.
Venezuela,
So-
for instance, like there's all
Like
these
who can
reports
even
in
talk
Venezuela.
about the backpack, thing? I mean, wild stuff. So
Right. So a bunch of these soldiers in Venezuela were completely incapacitated when, the U.S. invaded, and they couldn't figure out exactly how. But I think what
and they didn't know
best
which way was up.
describes, right, what best describes psionics is the interaction between the mental field and technology.
Yeah.
So you've got sort of
Exactly.
that interplay. Yeah.
Exactly. And I remember the guy's name. His name's Jake Barber. He's affiliated
okay.
with Skywatcher. Skywatcher
Yeah.
is like an independent organization that goes and actually recruits people. It's very interesting. They like to recruit the same people that Epstein liked to go and
Nice.
recruit. Let's just say that. Okay. Men that are more balanced, and men that, young kids that, would be, gay, or I just don't want to offend anybody, but like people that have more of a balancing of their energies seems to be more compatible with plugging into the idea of psionics. Psionics, there's 3 things that I've found that are all in common ground. It's just like Headless said, you consciously can connect to technology, aka craft. You can connect directly to an intelligence that may be inhabiting the craft or is the craft itself. And the lady, the Queen of Heaven, a lot of people are calling her the lady, but it's the divine feminine goddess that has appeared to many different people. I mean, very big people throughout history, George Washington, John Dee, yada, yada, yada. Wherever there's been a kingdom set up, anywhere, the lady has been the foundation and has been the protection for that kingdom. Headless, we were talking in the green room, you mentioned Rhea, ancient Rhea, right, to the Greeks, the mother of the gods, the consort to Kronos. She wears a fortification on her head, which a lot of people would say is a crown, and it is a crown. And that's one thing that the crowns would one thing that the crowns would mean too, not only than fortification, but it's also victory. You can see this in the Roman times, where they had their vines, right, that they would put on their heads, represent victory, conquering, and establishment, and being able to defend the empire, right? So it's interesting.
Well, with this concept, I think a lot of people miss it. It's like it's right in front of everybody's faces, but they're not able to say it. But basically, you've got Father Time and Mother Space, right? So you're talking about all of these different kingdoms that are set up, all of these different temples that are dedicated to the goddess, and then you've got female womanhood, where she's the space that life is coming out of. So all of these things are sort of based around the idea of space.
What you just said is why Epstein was obsessed with a professor known as Lisa Randall, who is a physicist who gives seminars talking about dark energy, dark matter. And in her own seminars, she refers to the universe, the majority of the universe, right? Because really, it's only 4 to 5% of material that reacts to light. Everything else is dark matter and dark energy. And so when she's describing this, I'd say like what's probably comparable to the abyss, right? Where, and again, I don't know. So correct me if I'm using any of those things like, wrong. But Lisa Randall describes it as the womb of creation, right? So it ties back into like, well, Gnosticism would be Sophia. So I guess this is a good time. I'm sorry, your name's small on my screen, Judith. Okay, I'm gonna read through some quick feminine names here, and we'll see if we can catch one. The Queen of Heaven, Gaia, Rhea, Frigga, Isis, Hor, Magna Mater, Kybele, or Kybele, however you want to say it, Semiramis, Athena, Artemis, Aphrodite, Ishtar, Asherah, Asheroth, Mary, Sophia, Shekinah, Black Madonna, and the Kali.
Which Mary?
Okay, so I mean, that's a good question. It's a good one.
Harry Mary.
Well, when I say Mary, I say the Catholic establishment of Mother Mary.
Oh, Mother Mary. I was actually thinking more Mary Magdalene.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, Mary Magdalene has appeared to people in, I don't know, visions or dreams, representing what's known as the white stag.
But they are
all
into
of this kind of stuff.
Gnosticism, right?
Huh?
These people are into Gnosticism, right?
Oh,
Mary
I think
Magdalene
so.
would definitely be.
Yeah, because they had Mary Magdalene. That's a book that the Gnostics use. Is you go by is a book by Mary Magdalene. I guarantee it's wrong. That would make.
Well, they call it the Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny, right? I picked this up in the Disclosure Day trailer. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but I'm super hyped about it. It looks like one of the best UFO movies ever. But they're showing you the divine goddess connection throughout the whole entire trailer. One thing that's important about the goddess, other than fortification, protection, it's fertility. And fertility is connected more to like the agricultural idea of fertility, rebirth, regeneration, and also wildlife. Rhea had lions next to her on each side of her throne. Mary Magdalene, which could be connected to the what we're talking about, she's represented multiple things, cardinals and stags. But in the Disclosure Day trailer, that's what you're shown throughout the trailer, that nature is trying to communicate with maybe what I think is the person going through like this awakening process throughout the whole film. And ultimately at the end, she finds like this light, and who knows what happens, right? The movie hasn't dropped yet. But yeah, so I'll wrap it back into psionics, where psionic assets have encountered the lady multiple times, and they have claimed that how they get into this psionic state is interesting, and I'd like to hear y'all's take on it, because I really don't I don't know the process very well, and I'm ignorant to some of these things. But Jake Barber, I'll tell you his experience. He's the guy, like I said, that kind of popularized psionics and stuff with his experience. He's a helicopter pilot for the United States government, and what he does is he goes to sites, picks up the package, transports it to its destination. That's probably all of the information or the briefing he's been given about most of his stuff, right? I have no military experience. I only have like paramilitary experience. But from my experience, when we go do things, there's like either protocols that we follow. There's kind of like a hidden system that keeps us in line, right? To do what we do. Maybe stay in some sort of state of ignorance. But Jake Barber, he's on a mission. He's 20 miles out from where the package is located, and this is when his experience started. Said it was a vibrational state of love, compassion, and he described it as a motherly love, that he was kind of encompassed in this experience, that he describes as beautiful, and it's always stayed with him even after this experience. But so when he goes to the package and he's hovering over it, he could see the craft. It's the egg-shaped craft. Egg maybe connecting to what we can get into a little bit later with the Orphic, like the Orphic traditions, and this idea of like Dionysus and Apollo, and where there is like this birth, death, and then reincarnation process. Because I think that fits into the cloning idea, right? I mean, cloning, you can make a connection to the raising of Osiris, in my opinion, because your mortal body dies, but you're continuously living through another avatar each and every time. And that's ultimately what I think, the Osiris ritual comes down to, is where you're just they're reincarnating their king over and over and over again, right? So Jake Barber gets over this craft. It's a egg-shaped craft, and he like consciously locks into what is either in the craft. He's not sure if it's a being in the craft that was in a scared state and was trying to like find someone for help, or if it was the craft itself. So that's a tough one to maybe think about. Like, is it the craft itself? How can technology give an experience like this? But I think they've showed it to you in movies. In the latest Independence Day film, I think it's Independence Day Resurrection, or I don't know, something. But there's an AI alien civilization, and then there's the actual alien civilization that they were fighting in the first film. And the AI civilization, this craft comes to Earth. It's in a state of stillness. It's not interacting or engaging with the people at all, and it turns on all of a sudden in the middle of the movie, and it's actually they claim to have ascended consciously so much that they've become the AI. And so maybe that ties into the cloning stuff or whatever. But that's kind of like what I believe Jake Barber in his interview was kind of describing. And so he picked up the package, dropped it off, and he said that it's been with him for, I mean, till this day. And so the divine feminine connection is there just because of the experience that he, describes and stuff.
Well, he specifically talks about how it made him cry, and he was just uncontrollably weeping. And that's actually very common with instances where people have had experiences with Mary, experiences with Gaia. It's this overwhelming sense of maybe like happy tears, sort of like this overwhelming joy that causes you to cry, as well as maybe there's sorrow in there as well. And that, I think there's something a lot deeper and spiritual when it comes to that sort of thing that, I mean, it's a very, very common experience. I've had my own experience.
Do you think his experience has a connection with like Kundalini awakening?
In some ways, I mean, the Orphic egg, right, being a concept, like the whole video was him showing this sort of egg hanging from a rope. And the Orphic egg is the egg wrapped around with a snake. And so there's this idea that what's inside the egg is this divine androgen called Phanos, and Phanos is light. And so what he's kind of showing and describing there actually goes way back in terms of like a spiritual awakening. Now, whether or not they were having these experiences back then, or maybe these are reflections of something to come, it's up for interpretation. But I think that there is a connection there between this egg, light, life concept that is now sort of being, reawakened, or at least reinvigorated by a lot of these symbols. And stuff like Raëlism is a good example of that. You can workshop all sorts of ways of achieving disclosure, be it technological, spiritual, or, any number of different ways. So if they are using Raëlism as that sort of workshop, we're going to see a lot of different, ancient concepts coming out, because that's what Raëlism does, is they're using the idea of the Elohim as these ancient gods coming to Earth and reimplanting all of this knowledge and awakening people to a different form of consciousness as their sort of background noise. So, there's a lot of the technology aspect too. So you've got everything sort of packed in there in a nice tight circle. So
yeah, man, it's all very interesting stuff. There was another guy, I listened to his testimony. I think his name is, or his account name is like J2 Psionic Asset or Psionic J2 Asset. I don't know what it is exactly, but I heard him on an interview, and he's one of these people that go out and do these things. And before I get into that, Jake Barber claims that craft was landed there by another psionics team, right? And he was just going there to recover it and all this, or go put it somewhere where then they could stage it somewhere else. Who knows, reverse engineer, they could do whatever, right? Or it could be actually the government creating some sort of tech. Like, in the episode I did, the first time when I came on the show, this technology, like what if they actually do have a piece of technology that's able to, maybe through frequencies or something, but it's able to target and give someone an experience, almost like a Kundalini experience.
That's what I thought happened to Bledsoe. That's my opinion. I think he was like almost gang stalked, or like, targeted and given an experience. I think he believes his story because that's how he perceived it, but I don't think it is the way he believes it.
Which yeah, because we can only remember
That's
so
why I
much,
think
right?
his son gets into the occult for, because I think his son actually understands really what the fuck happened.
Ah, yeah. You know, and I listen to his shows because he says a lot of things in there that I tie with multiple other things, you know. And I
thought about
personally
getting him
think,
on, actually.
huh?
I thought about getting him on actually because of some of the Gnostic shit he was talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That'd be cool if you get him on. I don't think he'd come on my show. My perspective is opposite of his. But I mean, I'd love to talk to the guy. I really would. I would love to share with him some of the research that I've done. Because, you know, as podcasters, like that's something that fuels us, right? Like we're trying to learn, we're trying to understand each other, and we're at the end of the day, you know, pretty good at, you know, at agreeing to disagree or whatever. But I listened to a guy, the J2 psionic asset guy. He was discussing with the host where when he had his experience with, you know, controlling craft, he said that the lady came and kind of like downloaded herself into him, where then she in a way kind of disassociated his consciousness, where he was able to do multiple things at the same time. It's kind of like I can't do this very well, but type and drink coffee and, you know, do something with my feet. I would never be a good drummer ever. But it's kind of like how he described it, where she has this ability to do this. And maybe what is the ultimate thing that comes out of this is that she has, you know, she has everything to do with consciousness. I'm not really sure, or is trying to be perceived in that way. But he says he claims that the lady has everything to do with disclosure. And I guess I'll, you know, ask you guys, like, what do you think of when someone says that she has everything to do with disclosure?
Well, I think personally, you know, what if Jake Barber and a lot of these other people are being experimented on and they're given sort of experiences with psionic devices, like the God helmet, for instance, and they're having experiences because there is a frequency modulation that takes place in their brain that makes them able to do more stuff. So as soon as you're exposed to that kind of frequencies, it might open up pathways in the brain.
For me, that actually really shows that it's Mary Magdalene to me, because she actually holds all the secrets that she tried to disclose to, I think it was Thomas, they said in her gospel, of everything that was revealed to her from Jesus that wasn't revealed to the other disciples.
That's interesting. Wow. I you know, the psionic thing, what gets me is like, you know, did I do that back in 2017? I was just completely ignorant to it. It wasn't something I practiced, you know, not something I tried to get better at, but, you know, maybe it happened. Maybe I did, you know, maybe there was a conscious connection with the phenomenon. Who knows? But I think even in, you know, Spielberg's kind of showing us a little something. Maybe I think he kind of knows more than he publicizes. But
Sure.
in the movie, I think, again, it's just a trailer, but I think the entities, the aliens, right, whatever they are, they're able to channel through people with technology, and the people are completely ignorant to it, which then made me, like, in the movie they're ignorant to it. The one whistleblower in the movie goes to a girl who is also being controlled by aliens and the government, because the government has the tech. They reverse engineered it and they're using it for their own agenda. Then you've got like the aliens who have the tech, who are probably trying to be more of like a savior to mankind, probably in the movie, right? But they have the ability to overthrow the agency of people's consciousness. Now, when I did the first show with you guys, I talked about this technology. I talked about the capabilities of it. And in the insight report from the World Economic Forum that says, you know, that AI will be a data intermediary and an agent, you know, will have agency. like, at what point, what will humanity have to do to get to that point? And I believe it's, migrating technology with people, which probably is 10, 15 years down the line. I mean, according to their insight reports. And if they're able to put this technology in people, then maybe they're able to like now just put you out of the driver's seat and put you in the passenger seat and tie you up. I don't know. And they're able to maybe, because when you look at MK Ultra, you look at the Manchurian candidates, you look at these things that we read that the government has been involved in. It was like Project Bluebird, all of this stuff. Monarch, all of it. It's to try and control people's consciousness or brainwash them enough to where, you can influence them to go do whatever it is you want them to do.
Have you guys heard of optogenetics?
No.
Any of you? So Nick, no, well, and I think Headless was there too. When we talked about dark DNA, when I came on and talked about DNA, and Stephen, you've talked about this too on other things, but optogenetics is, explained simply, is just a way to control brain cells using light, right? Like at its core, scientists can literally turn specific neurons on and off by shining light on them, right? This stuff is getting deep into like being able to control things, weaponizing it, literally like a light switch, right?
When I was looking into Epstein, I know I mentioned that, I keep saying this, but the first show we did, I talked about quantum dots. And in the emails, I was like going through the emails and I'm like, let me search this. This can't be in there. Yeah, it's in there. Right? You search quantum dots and all this kind of stuff. And then you see who's involved in the emails. You start making those connections. And what I think he was doing with the technology was mapping out the dark parts of the brain that we don't use. And if you could map it out, then you can mathematize it. Then if you can mathematize it, you can recreate it.
I mean,
or you can manipulate it.
Yeah, you can upload memories into people, literally control humans remotely.
I think he was trying to like live forever by transferring his or downloading his consciousness into something else. We know that we know homunculuses, golems, like these are ideas or folklore that have been talked about to be a vessel for something else.
I mean, and we see this in movies too, right? Stargate, all these different things where people just get a new body and download consciousness into that body, right? It doesn't mean it's real now, but I mean, I've always thought that they had to telegraph this stuff, so
yeah,
it's definitely it's wacky, it's wild.
Well, I think the most attractive idea from the psionics and these UFO experiences is the ability to have a pause button, right? So what you'll find really often with people being abducted and things like that is that they don't have the ability to move. Their mind is still working, but their body is completely unable to process anything. So they could just be picked up and put down anytime they hit the pause button. So when it comes down to it, I think that's really the goal, is just to be able to hit pause, do whatever you want to them and all of their stuff, and then turn them back on in the end and make them believe whatever happened to them was some part of some other big thing. I think the belief in the perception of what you're seeing is the really, strong part. Like, for instance, with your UFO experience, did you see any defining characteristics on this light, or was it more like a blob, right? So that could be like an upper atmospheric plasma type thing, like you've got ball lightning and other things. And plasma has been shown to have certain properties that are similar to consciousness, like a self-organizing principle to them. So if it's interacting with your consciousness, which is also some kind of electronic plasma, that would actually kind of make sense if there's a resonance between the two. But, you know, again, everybody assumes that this has to be aliens or something unnatural. But, you know, you've got the Marfa lights, for instance, which are there all the time, and nobody's thinking that they're coming from outer space or whatever. It's just sort of like a plasma phenomenon.
Yeah, and I think like what we're dealing with is something that's more spiritual than anything. You know, I mean, what do y'all think about the phenomenon? You know, is it a physical thing, or is it you think it's more of a spiritual thing, something that could do both?
I think it's more of a plasma. You know, it's partially physical and also self-organizing. It has some characteristics of life, but really what it is kind of natural. And this is sort of developed from the charges in the earth itself. And people, you know, believe they're having these incredible spiritual experiences, which, you know, can be true for them, but really it's part of the natural cycle here on earth.
Yeah. I mean, Brad Lale talks about this stuff quite a bit, right?
Yeah, that's his
From
thing.
the Awaken podcast, that's his deal, and he does a pretty good job of explaining it.
What if they want to put that phenomenon, not even really a phenomenon, it's a forced state of matter.
Yeah.
Like, what if they're able to put that into robots?
Ooh.
You know? Almost like in the beginning scene of Captain America, where like, the Nazis, the plasma is in everything. It's in their weapons, it's in their vehicles, it's everything that has a function. So I thought of that too, and I was like, what if they want to try and put that inside of robots? Then I started digging into Gordy Rose, who is the guy who established D-Wave, which is D-Wave is the one that pretty much was the first quantum computing company established, and was listening to some of his seminars and what he was presenting to other colleagues that wanted to be a part of his company. And he ultimately says that, you know, quantum computing is going to happen. There's nothing that's going to stop it. Humanoid robots is going to happen. There's nothing that's going to stop it. And that when everything comes together and finishes, that you won't be able to discern what is human and what is robot in the room. You will not be able to discern it at all. Like, you do not have the capacity to tell the difference. And he says ultimately that they want to put quantum computing chips into the neural networks of these robots so it could function these systems. And he said that, think of it as like a Lovecraftian idea where these entities, they don't care about us. They're so superior to us that there is no moral, ethical agreement, right? And that there's nothing that's going to stop this. And this is the progress of the nature of humanity. And that these things will be smarter than you can't even compute how smart these things are, and that they'll act like saviors to the world because they'll be able to quantum compute and come up with all kinds of solutions for all kinds of problems. Look at humanity today. We're always everyone, right, is looking for a savior to come rescue or to take us out of just the trash can that we're in, you know.
The dumpster
fire. Crazy. Yeah, Gordy Rose was kind of hilarious too, because he was serious, dude. And then I heard one guy in the audience ask him a question, and he like laughed at it, and then just totally like, I mean, shocked the guy, in my opinion, with his answer. And that's the thing, right? Like, ethics doesn't really have to be a construct behind all of this. It doesn't really, at the end of the day. If a mad scientist wants to be a mad scientist, they're going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's an island of Dr. Moreau somewhere.
We're living on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with oh, go ahead, brother. So like with that idea, you know, I guess we can get into the idea of cloning. And like, do you think that like cloning parallels with like an Osiris, you know, a raising of Osiris theme? Do you think like it's just, this is our culture, this is our reality?
I mean, that's kind of like transhumanism on steroids, right? I kind of look at cloning as kind of like that whole idea of extending life, right? Your own life. If you can download your consciousness into something, I mean, how does that work, right? I mean, cloning. I mean, we can talk a million different directions with cloning, right? I mean, when you get deep into the conspiracy side of this, it's a rabbit hole that doesn't end. And who are clones and how much cloning actually happens right now. And here's the thing that scares the crap out of most people. I think most people can't wrap their minds around it, but the bottom line is like me, totally wouldn't shock me if you had politicians that were cloned, if you had, people that you might deal with every day were clones. Who knows? I know plenty of people that, will use the NPC moniker, right? I know there's plenty of people that I look at on a daily basis and I go, oh my God, and I have another site. So in turn, there's people out there that look weird to me, man. Like, I'm not saying it's not like me I'm not Rowdy Piper, like putting the glasses on and taking them off. But at the end of the day, I see some things that are a little off from time to time. Anyone that's watched the show for a while knows, there's people with auras that don't fit. If I'm being honest. So what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know. There's some people that literally their aura is like motor oil, and I always equate that with evil. But I can't say I've ever seen an actual person with no aura that I can click on. You know what I mean? So that's one of those things that gets me going. Like you were bringing it up earlier, with the quantum cyborg people, right? Would they have an aura?
I had a guy on my show. His channel is FM8 Fire Medic 8. It's cool because he's like a retired firefighter. I'm a firefighter, so we kind of like when we came together, it was like, oh man, what's up, But he gets into a lot of research of a lot of nanoparticle research. He gets into a lot of microscopy. He gets into a lot. He works with a group of people that have the credentials to do all this, right? He's more of like the investigator and the journalist behind it that is writing about it and trying to figure out exactly what its purpose is. But he talks about that the things that we breathe in on a daily basis, the things that get through our skin and the things that get into our bodies that he can see under a microscope. He thinks ultimately that this is, spraying a bunch of sensors in the air that you can't see, and that these sensors become a part of our body, right? Most of the time our body's probably filtering these things out, all this kind of stuff. And we're talking about like nanoparticles that are smaller.
Nano stuff.
Yeah, like they're 1/30th of the size of a red blood cell, and a red blood cell is, pretty small. Pretty small. But he comes to this kind of conclusion where he connects a lot of different ideas, and one of these things is what it made me think of the sentient world simulation, which is something that was created at a university, and ultimately is in the hands of the government now. But it's our society, just in a video game. Everything's recorded. So how is it recorded? And so, Eric Firemedic, he talks and he's like, they're laying a sensor system over our system. Like, for example, if there's something that they're able to put in the body that overlays the nervous system, overlays all the organ systems, attaches to receptor sites. Ultimately, when that data gets harvested back, they can mathematize it, and then they can understand how the body works, therefore to try and duplicate it into something else, a synthetic or cyborg, or just pure robot, right? And they're trying to maybe calculate a lot of data So then they can recreate it themselves, which is interesting.
Well, I think a lot of that might have to do with, real estate projections. So if you can actually map out people's lifespans, other different factors in the environment and all the rest of the stuff, and then influence it slightly, you could make a killing off of buying low and selling high. And also this would give you great control over the country that doesn't like you too much. So, and it's all, underground. Nobody has to know about it. We've got these data centers going in rural communities all around the country, which could crunch these numbers and nobody would even know the difference. So
Wow.
it would be a really interesting way of, managing the population on a covert level.
I mean, dude, you're spot on, because one of the primary functions of the sentient world simulation is to be a prediction model, which we've seen that now become Palantir, and then there's Andoril, and there's all these other companies now that are AI companies of surveillance. But one thing that they do with the sentient world simulation is they use it as a propaganda model, where they can put a bunch of things into the system, see how the people react, and see if it's feasible, if it's worth funding, will it work, right? So it's interesting. It's like a digital world. And dude, like, what if they have the ability to create this digital world, right? About to go put that tinfoil hat on, like
straight Matrix. I'm just watch you put something in the back of your head.
Well, I'll mention something that probably you guys have talked about or heard of, but what if they're trying to create a Shambhala?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Like, it's in their own hands, right? So, who knows what they want to do, but if they were able to like create this like mystical digital world, where it could resemble like the Garden of Eden, dude, who wouldn't want to be a part?
People would visit every day.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that.
People would give up their agency.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like, well, just look at movie, and it's a movie, it's a book. It's a way better book than a movie, but it's that Ready Player One.
Oh yeah.
Things like that. Like, come on, man. Like, the movie actually does the book no justice. Where people just want to escape and live in an alternate universe, man, and people buy the rights to do it, the tokens to just be able to do it. And I mean, look at video games, and that's not even whatever, but I know, like, for myself, I don't have a gaming system, because if I did, I'd be divorced, number one. Number two, I would literally just be like, I'm that guy that gets in to the game and I'm up till 4:30 in the morning, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta be to work at 6. I'm that guy. And I have that type of addiction kind of part, because, damn, but I know that about myself, right? And I don't think people just don't have that type of awareness, and they just get, it's like it's a freaking light getting shined right in their face, and they're like, deer caught in the headlights, but it's life instead. And then an alternate one at that. It's exactly whatever they want to create, You're going to live in Silent Hill for the next 3 weeks.
Silent Hill.
Or whatever game, pick a game.
Yeah, that was a bugged out movie.
That was, wow.
And a bugged out game too, actually.
The game, but anyway.
I remember that shit. Me and my friends would get stoned and play that and be like, oh, what the fuck?
Based on a real place too, guys, but crazy. But anyway.
That is based on a real place? Oh, shit.
Centerville, I believe it's Centerville, Pennsylvania.
Yes, Centralia or
Centralia. There you go.
Centralia. Pennsylvania was the kind of model off of, holy hell. Just look it up. You'll go, okay, I understand. Silent Hill.
They had a mine fire of all the coal just caught on fire inside the mine.
It's still burning now. So
still burning.
I mean, you can go there, but I wouldn't really. It's kind of creepy. Exactly where like Silent Hill and what's the other game that they made the movie or the show on HBO with the fungus, the mycelium.
Oh yeah, that was another zombie movie where the mycelia got into the people.
Oh yeah, and that's one thing too that FM8 was talking about on my show. He was getting into all that stuff.
What is that? He was talking about the synthetic mycelium, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dude, I was like, what?
It's kind of weird, man. And what's crazy is how they move. They move like they have a purpose. You know, when you see someone moving with a purpose on the street, you're like, dude, that guy's on a mission.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of crazy how a lot of this stuff is. What's funny is, you know, like I do this detox every once in a while, and I just got back on it, and it's interesting. You can feel some changes, like something's kind of coming out of me.
Oh no, I do a parasite cleanse twice a year. The Last of Us, that's what it's called.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, that's a wicked creepy one. But anyway, but that brings up a whole nother thing of like sentient biologics and holy shit, you know. What's the toxoplasmosis and what that parasite does to you?
Is that from the cats?
That's the crazy cat lady freaking
Yo, that is fucking vicious. That is vicious.
It is vicious, man. It's
man.
And it'll take over, it'll hijack your brain.
Oh wow.
So just to think that well, what it does, I mean, you guys know this, right? Or not? Do I need to explain?
Yeah. Basically, when the cat takes his shit, he's mind fucking into loving it.
What ends up happening is that the it infects mice, and then the mice become like, I guess for lack of, sexually attracted to the smell or something with it. It basically it makes a mouse better prey for a cat. So because the only place that this parasite can reproduce is in the cat's stomach.
Right.
So, dude, it's wild.
It makes you
Toxoplasmosis.
lose all inhibition. So people who have, lived a pretty safe life, they have a cat, and then all of a sudden they're getting into motorcycle accidents because they've lost all fear.
Yeah. So, I mean, just imagine though some hyper either weaponized parasite or just weaponized by Mother Nature, or, you know, genetic whatever. Who the hell knows? But stuff like that is all over the place.
Well, just recently it came out that, it was kind of silently confirmed that the government was responsible for all of these tick-borne viruses that came out of Plum Island.
Plum Island, baby. Connecticut.
Jeez.
That's where I'm from, guys. Love it. Plum Island.
I wanted to ask you guys something. I'm gonna circle it back to like Jake Barber and Psionics. When I was listening to him, he said that how he gets into this psionic state, right? I think it may sound like meditation, but he says that you lower your intellect and you increase your intuition, and you put yourself in this state to where how he characterized it is in Scientology, it would be called as clear. So like you put yourself in this clear state, almost like, now I don't know if is it suppressing the ego, or is it like, what do you guys think like he's kind of describing?
Sounds like Scientology.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, and unfortunately, when you think of Scientology, I'm like, I don't know, is it just them manipulating you? I don't think there's really any clearing of the ego, or maybe you're just like removing your ego and incorporating theirs.
Yeah. When I was looking into like the Osiris ritual, I got dragged into the divine feminine, obviously, with Isis and Horus and the connection that the divine feminine goddess has. Her purpose for what's being taken place here, right? It's kind of like sophisticated but simple. You know, you've got like this father, the head of the godhead, right? Osiris dies, but then is reincarnated through an immaculate conception from a sunbeam to the goddess, and then he relives again through the child, and then in a lot of the cultures you'll see that the goddess then takes the child as a consort, and so it's like it's this three-part godhead that's all one and works together in some way. And especially the goddess, her role is to help with the reincarnation, right? Like I'm not, like I said, you know, I'm not like a specialist in this stuff, but I think that that's kind of what's happening here. And if the divine feminine, it has something to do with all of the things that we kind of touched on, and it could be speculated against or debated, whatever. But you know, when I read Revelation 13, I think I'm seeing this process take place. And it's in Revelation 13, it says that you know, that basically like the Antichrist figure takes a fatal head wound.
Mm-hmm.
He dies, and then he is alive. And then I take that, and then I make a connection with that in Daniel chapter 11, verse 38, where it says, it's talking about the Antichrist again, and it's saying that the Antichrist, this is like where he's exalting himself to be God, which would be like what Osiris does, or Horus, right? And it says right there, it says that he honors the God of forces. And so I started investigating like what's being talked about here. And that God of forces is directly connected to the characteristics of fortification with the divine feminine goddess. So he's honoring the goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And what's he honoring her for? Because he's honoring her with a lot of interesting things like precious stones, pearls, gold. I mean, all the things that hold value in our world today. He's honoring this thing. And it's kind of like when I see the presidents go to Israel and they worship the Wailing Wall. They are communing with the Wailing Wall because ultimately, through the Jewish tradition, they believe that it's the feminine aspect of God, known as Shekinah, that is in the wall, and that wall is known to be a very old fortification piece of architecture for Israel. And
is that why they do what they do to it?
Yeah, because they're kind of.
Oh yeah.
You remember when we?
Yes, and I even showed Donald Trump doing it to the wall.
So, and all of these kings, they kind of go there. Macron's done it. Like a bunch of people have done it, right? So I think that kind of may show me like what that is to look like. I don't know, or maybe they're just doing it already. But I'm thinking that that's what's going to happen to maybe like who's known as like the Kalki, or you know, the final Maitreya, or you know, what does Alice Bailey talk about? She talks about the Maitreya and the ascending masters, and this figure that will lead mankind into maybe, you know, this ritual to live on forever. If he does it, the whole world's gonna follow him because they want to live forever, right? I mean, it kind of seems like that's where that would go if that was to happen. But more about, you know, the fortification is Ishtar was known to be, you know, the Ishtar gate, right, of Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it goes on and on with Rhea and Kabeli and all this stuff where there's a direct connection with the goddess and fortification. And so what do you like? I guess my question is how do you guys think like she aids in this way? You know, I'm not well versed on it 100%. I know a little of a lot about it, but like Isis, for example, and Osiris, or
back to the idea of the goddess of space. So they had whole cities devoted to Ishtar and these Babylonian goddesses. And these cities remained sacred places that none of these other armies would touch. And the idea was that the city itself was the body of the goddess, right? And so when you've got places like this, that's sort of the body of that goddess. And you can, in the medieval temples, they would have all of these feminine symbols. We've done shows where we were talking about how they would write the sign of Mary inside of all of these temples that was, devoted to her. So the idea is the space itself is a dedication or the body of that goddess. And what they're doing is they're trying to, spiritually impregnate it so that the, coming Messiah can come forth. So it's sort of like an impregnation. And then, but, if you look at Isaiah 49:23, where they're talking about how kings will be your foster fathers and queens your foster mothers, they will bow down on their faces and they will lick the dust off their feet. That's kind of what you're seeing with Donald Trump and all the rest of these world leaders going there and doing this sort of ritual. Is they're trying to make this prophecy come about.
Yeah. I mean, this goes back as far as time, really. I mean, the story. I mean, Gilgamesh, all the, and his mother, the wild cow of heaven, I mean, this is all stuff that this goddess, not a human, but a goddess, wise and protective and deeply involved in all these, making these guys, like Gilgamesh and Osiris and Enkidu and all the, it's that integral part, right, of that counter. Trying to work my way through it.
It's all part of a formulation, right?
Yeah,
so
it really
how
is.
it's put together is the formulation.
Yeah.
You mentioned something really important, Headless, where the divine goddess would represent like the confines of the city, right, or like the jurisdiction. She would be like the whole thing. And I found it interesting when I was looking into the Evenk tribe, the Tungus tribe, and the Samoyeds, and how they would create idols for the divine goddess that they worshipped. They would create her as a tent, and a lot of these artifacts, they would differ. There'd be symbols on like this. It would look like a tent, and there'd be feminine goddess symbols, maybe like the 8-pointed star, so on and so forth. And some of them would represent the divine feminine goddess as like a chimney. It would be her head at the top of the chimney, and it would look like a house. And so it made me think of the Raëlism. We're going to tie that back in to where they want the third temple to be built. There seems to be like a very feminine aspect to them, and they want to come and establish themselves in an embassy, which I think they want to do it at the third temple. And when you think of the third temple, it was to house the Spirit of God. And so maybe that's on the horizon, is the divine feminine worship maybe coming back in the ways that I kind of laid out there. I don't know, it's kind of interesting seeing, putting all the pieces together.
It's definitely a cyclical thing, for sure.
I wanted to mention something too, because I think you brought it up. You're like the cow of heaven or something. But Egyptian Hathor, known as like the cow goddess, there's something connecting here with the third temple and the red heifer sacrifice, where even
of course.
In some Kibble cults, when they would do rituals, they would do like Torabolium, where they would slaughter the bull, they would slaughter the cow, and the blood would rain down on the initiate that was kind of asking for something. And a lot of the times what they would ask for is for protection, usually for their descendants or their young ones, or for their legacy that's coming, right? Because these people ultimately wanted to stay in power, right? So they wanted to secure it in any way that they could, and they had a relationship with the mother. And a lot of these priests in these rituals were, which in the Kabbalah cults were known as the Gali, they would reenact the same thing that Attis did. And Attis is known to be the consort child figure of Kabbalah, which I kind of make a connection to Trump. It gets a little conspiratorial, but what Attis was really known for was the Phrygian cap. And so when you look at pictures of Attis, you'll see that he has like a little beanie on his head, almost like what Santa would wear, to be honest with you. And it's red in color. And so one thing about Trump that I find really interesting is at his penthouse in New York City, which is his estate, he has a painting on his roof, and the painting is called Apollo led by Aurora. So Apollo is a direct parallel figure to Attis, and Aurora is another figure that could be connected to Kibeli, for example. And what does Trump wear a lot? What does his followers wear? They wear a red hat. And the Phrygian cap was known for like political power, jurisdiction, authority, victory, a lot of these things, almost like what a crown would kind of also represent. But back to, the Kabbalah cults and the rituals that they would do. This was even taken into Rome with the Magna Mater in like, I think 200 or 204 BC or something like that. But they would perform the same rituals too. And I think, and I could be wrong, but I think that Attis was transformed into Mithraism. Again, there's not like a lot of direct things that you can say like that point that out, but a lot of the times how the goddesses or the child of the goddess, they kind of were together wherever they were taken from each group of people into different lands, because people traveled with their gods more than anything. They traveled with them not only for protection, but to rep them too. So if another clan that may have, maybe had some beef with you or wanted to start some beef with you out in the wild west out there, they would see you carrying what it is you're carrying, and they'd be like, hold on, no, we can't fight with that god. That god did this, you're right. And I think ultimately that was something that the Templars did with the Black Madonna, which kind of gets into like the whole divine feminine too, and transformation and all of this. And ultimately, maybe that's what technology can do. I get into my idea with quantum dots and this black goo phenomenon to maybe what is represented with the Black Madonna, known as the alchemical Negretto or something like that, I think it's called. But it's kind of like symbolizing this transformation state, a state of destruction, and then purification afterwards.
Well, when it comes to the Kybali cult and the black goo, they originally had, again, when they moved that Kybali cult from Turkey or Anatolia over to Rome, which is very important because that's where Phrygia was as well, the Phrygian cap, that they had a black stone that was associated with this meteorite. And so this black stone meteorite was seen as this original sort of goddess, right? Coming down from the heavens. And what we see in ancient Egypt, we have the idea of, again, the tent. So Nuit is this woman that's arched over with her body looking like stars and this black night. And so she's creating this tent over Geb. And then from that position, that's where you get the birth of the world. So when you start to add these up, again, Nick, when he was going through his Minerval ritual, they have this tent, and the tent is symbolic of this first stage of entry. And so having these symbols repeat over and over again throughout history, again, with the Phrygian cap being associated with Attis and Apollo, the Greeks believed that all wisdom was coming from the East, right? And you look at the older civilizations that had a lot of influence over the Greeks, that's in the Mesopotamian region. And through, the Anatolian Peninsula, which they saw as a very, very ancient place, you've got this Attis worship coming into Greece. You've got Adonis from further down in Syria, and Adonai is sort of a derivation of Adonis. And so all of these things are coming from the East, and they believe that all wisdom, again, where you see the three wise men coming from the East. How could they come from the East? If they saw the star in the East, wouldn't they be going west? If they came from the East and they saw the star well, that was a common motif back then, is that all of this wisdom is coming through the East. And when you're talking about the bull of heaven too, the Mithra cult has him stabbing the shoulder of the bull. Now, that's not where you want to stab a bull if you're going to kill it. But if you look at the Taurus constellation, there is a toroid meteor shower that comes. So it's like the raining of the blood of the bull coming from that toroid meteor shower. So all of these things really do link together in terms of night sky and Attis worship and Kybali. Again,
Dude,
like that's
clip that, dude. That was awesome, man. Dude, you're right on it, you know. And what's funny is I've connected the black stone from Kybali to the black stone of the Kaaba, you know, and they're all connected. Before the Islamic nation came to a patriarchal monotheistic religion, it ultimately was worshiping, you know, the goddesses of you know, the wives of their god, you know. And I think that's what got carried over there. You know, some of these pre-Islamic Arabic gods, the goddesses, were known as Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat, and they were the daughters of the Most High. And you know, Manat was worshipped as the black stone. You got like these three goddesses, and even the Kaaba, which Epstein wanted a piece of, by the way, right? The Kaaba was meant to symbolize that tent, like that fortification, the you know, yeah. It's wild.
Well, the black cube is sort of representative of this sort of age of El, or this age of, I guess, the father of the gods. So you would have Kronos and Rhea, right? And during the age of Kronos, that was called the golden age. So all of these black cubes everywhere are representative of this golden age goddess of Kronos, you know, and El is that golden age goddess that is associated with Kronos as well. So the Garden of Eden, also a golden age associated with living close to the gods, close to, you know, this El character. And so all of that is to bring about this age of Kronos again. And the age of Kronos is the age of eternal life. And what we see is with the Hebrew calendar, it's a 6,000 year calendar. It's coming to an end pretty soon. And we're going into the age of Aquarius. Age of Aquarius, we're talking over the age of Aquarius right now with all of this Wi-Fi and all of these radio signals. It's the watery air sign. And who rules the watery air sign? Saturn, back to Kronos again. So we're entering into sort of this, you know, predicted golden age, because they could map out these astrological ages pretty well back then. And, you know, that was coming through the Sumerian or the Babylonian astronomers. And those Babylonian astronomers had a huge impact on all of these different cultures by giving people the, you know, the astrological signs and all the rest of these symbols that are now being carried over and repeated, whether we realize them or not, right in front of us. So it's, you know, whether it was an intentional thing or not, we're seeing the reflections of the past sort of coming back over and over again.
I mean, you brought up Alice Bailey earlier, and she was huge in popularizing the idea of the coming of the age of Aquarius, you know, unity, enlightenment, global cooperation, the whole gig.
And we're talking over very, you know, we're unifying over the watery air sign as we're speaking right now.
Yeah,
so it's like,
right.
Well, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? What is it that interconnects us the most right now? This black screen on a phone.
Yeah, the interwebs.
Right. You know, because that's the state of interconnectedness that where we're at, social media. Everyone has their own little avatar that they've created. Everyone has their own space, and people can go into each other's space if you allow them. We've got privacy, you know, settings that we can adjust and stuff, but people ultimately can come and peek into your reality, whatever you've voluntarily put out there. And so there is like this state of interconnectedness. It's very fascinating stuff, man. I mean, there's even and that's where I think like this you know, with the black stone and all of this, the Black Madonna, I even think that there's some sort of connection with the Hindu god Kali. There's like this transformation process that she goes through, and this is ultimately why her skin is blue, because it's changed of some sort. And I don't know if it has anything to do with, you know, like in Hinduism, you've got the chakras and stuff. Well, what I'm ultimately trying to say is like, where did they get the black color from? Yeah, they definitely most likely got it from the meteorite. I don't know, iconography or whatever. But when you mix together all of the colors of the rainbow, and it may change depending on how light the colors are before you do this or how dark they are, but ultimately when you mix the rainbow together, you get a very, very dark brown or black color. And with some of the teachings, I forget where, again, I'm some of these terms, they're a different dialect for me, so but there's something with that, with you know, other rainbow symbolism throughout all the other cultures, and does it connect to this idea of Shambhala, this kind of utopia, this Elysium idea? Not sure.
Well, I think black stones have been used for divination since the very beginning. You can look at the Aztec god Tezcatlipoca, the god of the smoky mirror, and they would use this obsidian stone to divinate through, as they would put all sorts of different, you know, incenses before it. And the smoky mirror idea is sort of how you can divinate and see into the future. And now we're using our black smoky mirrors to put ourselves out there and, you know, only receive the reflections of other people that they want to give you. So in a lot of ways, we're given sort of these reflective capabilities now, but are we really using them to see into ourselves, or are we just sort of being tricked by them? Again, Tezcatlipoca being a trickster god as well. So he would be the opposition to the Quetzalcoatl. So he's sort of like the yin to that yang, and then you know, you've got that symbolism there as well.
Was Quetzalcoatl, did it have feminine characteristics? Was it like a goddess, or like a, because would you say it's compared to like Rahab, Tiamat, Leviathan?
Maybe a little.
It's a little bit Leviathan-like, but the feathered serpent was kind of the symbol for this character, this you know, man with a big beard, kind of going back to the Raëlians again, who came down and he was the wisdom giver and the lawgiver. And this is one of the reasons why they weren't as aggressive with the Spanish, because he promised to come back across the sea one day after they had, you know, gone through a certain amount of time. And when they landed, they're like, Quetzalcoatl's back. And so everybody was sort of, you know, excited about that. And, you know, the 500 Spaniards that landed there, they didn't really do the heavy lifting when it came to the war against the Aztecs. It was the 50,000 tribes who were sick and tired of the Aztecs, you know, killing and eating everybody. So it's kind of interesting how the prophecy came about, and they decided, you know, well, we want the gold, and gold is this immortal concept of being the flesh of the gods. And this pursuit of gold is always in the background of all of these prophecies, and everything else is, you know, they're looking for how they can get gold through these spiritual principles. If you look at, let me see, Zechariah 14 verses 12 through 14, they talk about this Ark of the Covenant style plague that melts your eyeballs out of your face and rots your tongue out. But then down in verse 14, they say, and then all of the people went out there and collected the gold, riches, and garments from all of the corpses. So it was like a corpse looting ritual after they get done, putting their Yahweh curse on everybody that causes them to die. So
it's what's funny about Rael and his testimony is because I started to search. I was like, is there, because all he's describing is like these Elohim that are balanced, right? There's an androgyny to them. But I was like, are there women, Elohim? And he said, he says yes in his book. And where he clarifies that is in Zechariah, right? Zechariah being a prophet, he's being showed this vision. This angel's kind of like showing him this vision. And a lot of the prophets, when they're looking at things, they're like, what am I looking at? And then they go to the angel, and then the angel's like, it means this. And so he's told to look in this ephod, and inside the ephod, he lifts up the talent and he looks inside, and he sees two women, and they're like holding like this object or something. And he goes to the angel, goes, what is this? And then the angel goes, this is wickedness, and that their objective is ultimately to lift whatever it is that they're taking to the lands of Shinar. And when you end up looking at Shinar and what was built there, what the ancient cities were, it goes back to possibly could be like the Tower of Babel or even Nineveh or other places around them. But ultimately there was a nation built there, and the nation became the Babylonian Empire. And what started the Babylonian Empire, I think, ultimately goes to this Godhead worship, where they ultimately worshipped kind of. Now, when I say these three parts of the Godhead, they may have not currently been in the same timeline, but they represent the same things. And so it's like Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz worship, which goes back to like Osiris, Isis, Horus, Odin, Frigga, Thor, on and on and on. And what they were trying to do with the Tower of Babel was either go to heaven with the tower, or meet heaven at some point, or even bring heaven down to earth. But I think the ultimate objective for this is to have the ability to do what you imagine to do. Where I use the example when Moses is, going to the Pharaoh in Exodus, and he's saying, hey, release my people. He's there with Aaron. Hey, release the Israelites. And the Pharaoh kind of mocks him and doesn't believe his God and all this. And Moses throws his staff on the ground, and it turns into a snake. Well, the Pharaoh, right on each side of, the Magi on the side of the Pharaoh, they threw their staffs down as well, and it turned into snakes. And I think ultimately that it turned into a snake because it's what they saw Moses do, and what they imagined they were able to do through whatever kind of, I don't know what it is that they were connected to, this maybe a cosmic consciousness or whatever, but they had the ability to do very supernatural things. They had the ability to manipulate the sub-physical world. We can, in the physical world today, it's things that you can see. You objectively can point out and see, like I'm looking at my pen right now. I know I can see that, but I can't see the particles, or I can't see, the atoms and electrons and all this stuff that make up the matter. I have to use something from the physical realm to be able to see that, like microscopes or electron microscopes, so on and so forth. And ultimately, we can use the physical world to manipulate the sub-physical. If you've got an illness, they've got a pill for it. I tell you that. And you take this pill that you can physically see, but yet it manipulates your sub-physical makeup. It connects to things that are on the microbiological level that you can't see with your eye. So you can manipulate the sub-physical world with the physical. But there's like a threshold in between that sub-physical and the metaphysical. And whatever those people knew, they were able to remove that threshold. and use the metaphysical sciences and practices and all this kind of stuff to ultimately manipulate the subphysical. And so those
Well, it's like-
stabs, when they threw it down, it turned into a snake, man.
It's like your
Crazy.
incident with the UFO. Like, were your thoughts influencing it, or vice versa? So who's really in control at that point? There's a perceptual change in how you've seen that thing. Now, if these things are a lot more common in the ancient world and they understood that their minds were having influences over it, you could actually get some sort of a physical or maybe illusionary effect that would go along with these sort of collected energies. And you see the stories of what's it called, the Solomonic magic, where he's collecting the demons, the 72 demons, into the bottle. And these 72 demons were capable of doing amazing things for him. So he's sort of like channeling these different energies into a source that he can then make into a usable kind of a thing, which, if that goes along with this atmospheric sort of plasmatic energy, it would kind of actually fit and make this whole thing make sense a little bit.
Yeah, man, it's all a journey for me, man. It's crazy putting some of these things together and seeing how they connect. I think that's the thing I'm fascinated with the most, is seeing the interconnectedness of multiple different subjects. It's like when we started the show, I think Nick was like, Raëlism, Psionics, cloning, how are we going to put all this together? And I don't know. Hopefully I did something.
It's like a puzzle, man. It's fun. It's a puzzle for sure.
Well, it's all in there when you deal with the Raëlism. I mean, they'll touch on it. You know what I'm saying? So,
right. I mean, it's lions and tigers and bears.
All you got to do is just catch lightning and put it into a bottle, and then you're good.
Right. Exactly. All set.
Yeah.
It's just stab a bull in its freaking neck and let it freaking spurt all over everything.
Oh, God. And give it to tuberculosis patients afterwards.
Right.
And I've seen, being in the medical field, I can see the slow progression of civilization getting to coming to an understanding of eternal life. I can see through the medical system that ultimately that could be something that is driving the force of the industry. When I look back at it, we could look back at who knows, 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. I think when people died, they died. And I think that when the first time maybe medicine got incorporated, or CPR got incorporated into things, I think, someone fell out, they went into cardiac arrest, and they went to him and they hit him real hard in the chest. So in the medical field, we call that the cardiac thump. And you're actually developing kinetic energy when you are punching somebody. That's why when you get hit in the head in boxing, you get brain damage, because ultimately, it throws your brain and it hits the walls of your skull. But there's energy with every blow, every punch that you're taking that is affecting what's on the inside. And so the cardiac thump became a thing. And so people were like, oh, wow, you can hit someone on the chest and it'll bring them back to life. Then it started to get into like, oh, well, we, probably through autopsies and experimental things, right? Like there was really not up the law of the land out there like it is today. And they're like, oh, the heart is right here. That's interesting. What's the heart do? The heart pumps the blood throughout the whole body. Oh, that's interesting. The lungs oxygenate the blood. Whoa, this is interesting. And then so like the medical field started to develop a philosophy where it was like, we can stop these things from happening, or if they do happen, we can reverse it. And so that ultimately is like what is behind medicine, with whatever medication, this or that. It's to try and treat the situation. And then slowly you started to see like CPR became a thing, like, late 1800s, early 1900s, but there was no statistics, no data being drawn from it. So they didn't know what they were doing was working. They just knew that the heart was there. Then it started to come into where, paramedics got into the system or became a thing, during war, where there was people hurt and injured or even dead out in the field, but we needed people that were not in the fight to go out there and get them. And so that was like when the first ambulance idea kind of came into play, because then it came into the civil world over here, the civilian world, and people were like, hey, you know what? We'll use the morgue trucks that we had to transport the dead bodies and we'll turn them into ambulances. And I know this history specifically because where I'm at, you know, in the state I'm in, we had the first ambulance ever in the state. So this is like a kind of like a history thing that we had to learn when we were going through orientation and stuff. But then you started to see that, like, oh, they started to learn that electrotherapy can actually stimulate the small microbiology of the body, which ultimately your heart beats because of electricity, sodium and the electrolyte and potassium, with magnesium and calcium and all that kind of stuff. Now we're at the point where there's a defibrillator on pretty much every store, every business that holds occupancy. They got to meet some sort of criteria, right? And you know, you got to have a defibrillator in some places, you know, like the gym, for example. You walk around in there, dude, and you know, you're like, oh, I'm okay. I think I'll make it out of here. You know, we got these things close by. And it's like now when we've reached this point in time where transhumanism is a thing, I just think like this idea is just going to keep evolution, you know, keep going through, you know, different states of evolution until it gets to where, you know, they can sustain life in this physical material realm, which who would really want to stay here, in my opinion. But yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yep. I don't know.
Yeah. Tough question. I get it. It's kind of like a tough topic, man.
It's one of those, yeah, for sure. I guess it's whatever you believe in comes after.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, that's pretty much all I got in the ammo container.
Oh yeah, no, that was great, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
No, of course. No, I love having you on. So it was, you think we'll be around to see any of this weird shit happen?
Dude,
maybe. I think so. I mean, if I
the season.
Oh, you mentioned something earlier. You said wisdom, Headless. I think you said it. You said wisdom comes from the East in a lot of these stories, right?
Yep.
Okay.
All of the Greek stories say that wisdom came through the East. So they associated that with Anatolia and also Mediterranean sort of Eastern side of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'll bring Bledsoe back into the conversation where he describes in his vision that he got from the lady. He says it's a prophecy. Some people claim it as a prediction. Some people claim it as BS. My buddy says this guy got lobotomized or something, which kind of made me laugh. But who knows, right? Like MK Ultra, CIA, like they're on his property. I'm not really sure what's going on. But in his vision that he was given to by the lady, he says that a new knowledge will come upon mankind when the star of Regulus turns red. And the star of Regulus has to be within the spring equinox where the Sphinx is looking and gazing at, you know, in this direction. And when we see this, he makes predictions of this is going to happen in 2026 or 2027. And who knows, the timeline might change a little bit because he's backtracking a little bit to where he may not really fully know. Who knows exactly? You know, I'm wondering if maybe we'll see something coming to this, as if, for example, like an eclipse or a blood moon or something like that, leading into this. I mean, do you think that Bledsoe is truthful in his experience, or maybe there's something to this? He's going on a lot of big shows talking about this.
Well, Back to the Trump and the Aurora, right? Aurora is also called Eos. Eos is the goddess of the dawn. The opening of the gates of dawn is what her task is. She opens it up for Helios. And the idea was that all of the wisdom and all of that knowledge comes from the rising of the sun. So having the star Regulus, which I don't think it's associated with the dawn, but you do have the dawn star, Venus. Having that sort of being the symbol as the opening of these gates of wisdom really does go way, way back into history, especially with the ideas of, the dawn being this sort of opening of consciousness. So, I mean, this is where we get our sun sign from, wherever the sun's rising in whichever constellation, that's how you are ensouled, as in the soul, the sun coming through that sign is what generates that personality type. So there is that as well. So it's all wisdom coming from the East could be taken literally, metaphorically, in lots of different ways, but it would match up with all of the sort of similar motifs throughout history.
Yeah, you brought up Venus, and ultimately I think Venus was the very first form of goddess worship. Yeah, there's some people say, some historians will back up where in the Paleolithic time, which is around like 25,000, 30,000 BCE, but there's a lot of things that they've dated back to that time, and that they've worshipped, Venus of I think it's called like Willendorf or something like that. And then from that time frame, and these are just probably main figures. Again, I don't know. I'm not a historian or an archaeologist to kind of bring the two together. I'm not out in the field. I just, listen to people. And then it kind of transferred from there and migrated into another figure, like we talked about. I'm sorry. I don't think we mentioned this one, but the seated woman of Kadalhuyuk. I think I said that right. But it's like the Neolithic period, the 6000 BCE time. And then it went to like the Minoan snake goddess, Kybele, Magna Mater, Isis, Hathor, Inanna, Ishtar, Rhea. And I mean, are we seeing is this the lady in our time period now? Like, it's gone through all these time periods, and then now it's like this is kind of how we're seeing it. We're seeing it by guys talking about it a lot on podcasts from experiences that they're having and stuff.
Well, I mean, in terms of that reflection, yeah, there would certainly be a reflection. But the Venus of Willendorf character is a direct inspiration for Kybele Kubaba stuff. So when they talk about the ancient sources for this, goddess worship, you could actually even see on the Venus of Willendorf, she's got all of these sort of breasts or balls all over her face. And then you see the Artemis of Ephesus, where she's got all the bull testicles or the seed of life all over her statue. And you actually can see in the, I believe it's in the book of Acts, Paul having a run-in with these people who were making the statues of the Venus of Ephesus. And they were afraid that he was going to start smashing all of their, handicrafts. And so they cornered him and started yelling, Artemis of Ephesus in his face. So it's funny, you kind of get that whole Kubaba angle coming up against Paul as he's sort of traveling around in the region.
Yeah. And I took a look at Göbekli Tepe, and I just looked into, some of of the artwork on the stones and stuff. And there is like a mother goddess. And I believe it to be the mother goddess. Again, like they just don't really know, but it definitely is a woman giving birth. You could see like the discharge of the birth, as they're in the drawing. And on that same stone is the lion. So I incorporate that as this is, I believe, what they were had at least in their pantheon of, which could ultimately go back to like the Olympians, right? And the 12.
It's funny,
astronomy.
Snorri Sturluson, he actually incorporates that in his retelling of the myths of the Norse people. So they've associated Freya with these cats, but they didn't have cats up there. So they think that Snorri Sturluson, the guy who was the Christian monk who was writing all this down and a politician, he just incorporated what his knowledge of goddess worship from the ancient world looked like in associating these cats with Freya. So, he's sort of taking that Mediterranean knowledge and bringing it up to the Norse people as well. But yeah, the cats associated with sort of that mother goddess is really, really ancient as well.
Yeah, I find it fascinating too, as the goddess has moved through different groups of people. It seems like when it gets to this certain group, they'll kind of fractionalize the pantheon into multiple other pieces, but when you merge all these pieces together, it might have represented, the wholeness of another god that was, part of a different culture. And I think the Greeks might have done that with, Athena, Artemis, Aphrodite. When you can actually bring some of these characteristics together, and it could represent like more of like a Rhea or a Cybele or whatever. And I find that very interesting. Because this stuff is hard to follow,
Yeah.
So, and it's like another language.
Really is, yeah.
I mean, I think what we kind of come to realize, though, with all the rhyming going on, right? Because it all kind of rhymes, is that it all comes, especially with the divine feminine, it all comes to a semblance of rebirth, right? And what are we being rebirthed into? Is it higher consciousness? Is it logic, clarity, all of them, Apollo, Mithra, all these things. It's all about everything we've talked about, essentially, is about, rebirth or reinventing all of it, I mean, even if you look through a Christian lens, what is this all about?
I think what it's all about,
it's all a restart.
I think ultimately what it's about is reversing the Adamic sin.
Yeah.
So when I'm reading there, when Eve ate the fruit and then she gave the fruit to her husband and he enjoyed as well, the first thing that I see happen is that both of their eyes were opened.
Yeah.
Which I think ultimately was a de-evolution of the conscious state that they were in. If they didn't know that they were naked, and then after this happened, they know that they were naked, something had to happen in their state of consciousness.
Yep.
They were an ultimate creation, and then they did something to de-evolutionize themselves, and then now I think what's coming full circle back around is a Messiah figure of some sort that will try to lead humanity into that state prior to that sin.
Yeah.
Like they want to get
higher state,
get humanity back. I think that's what transhumanism,
greater unity, less conflict, spiritual shift, it's all kind of rhymes, period.
Wild stuff, man.
Yeah. I guess it's just kind of like,
same song and dance, just different way of showing it.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I totally agree with that.
And it's like we argue about the way we get there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think most folks, it's just like the ends define the means, right? We're arguing over bullshit. So it doesn't matter if we all end up in the same place, right?
Yeah.
I don't know shit. That's my freaking that's my motto, as you guys all know. Bottom line is we don't know shit.
Exactly.
We do, but we don't know shit. So
I have a few ideas.
We make 2-hour podcasts, but we still don't know shit.
You know what the fuck we're talking about.
It's fun though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think Perfect way to end it.
I think the fact is that if you think you know shit, you might just want to step back a second because you don't. So
Yeah.
All right. So now I think we'll.
That was a good conversation. That was good.
Oh yeah. That was a
Thank
lot.
you, Stephen.
Fuck yeah.
No, thank you, everybody.
No, thank you, dude. I knew it was going to be like that if you were coming back on. The first time you came on, it was pretty detailed. No, that's why I was excited. Before we wrap it up, I'll have everybody here plug their shows and stuff. Judith, the Loon, what is going on?
I'm surprised I was able to hang in there. But thank you for having me, and thank you for the wonderful conversation. You could catch me at YouTube and X as the Loon. You can see how tired I am. And thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I know you got work early. I appreciate it. And Headless, what is going on, sir?
You can find me on X at the Headless Giant, and also on YouTube and on Instagram. And tomorrow we're going to be doing some remote viewing, so come by and check that out. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you, sir. And Bennett, thank you so much for making it, man.
Yeah, man. Broadcastingseeds.com and BennettTantonBooks.com, and everywhere podcasts are played. So,
oh, man, thank you very much. And Steven, please, the man of the last 2 hours.
No, thanks, brother. I appreciate you, man. I thank everybody for jumping on, and it's always nice to talk with y'all and to conversate and to put up with some of these things that I get into. But ultimately, thank you. I hope everyone has a blessed night. Again, I'm Steven, host of the Biblical Hitmen. You could check the show out on YouTube. I'm on X and social medias and audio platforms. But thank you again, everybody.
The Biblical Hitman.
Hitman. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody who jumped in the chat and caught the live. That's what's up. There was a lot of people chatting in there tonight. Definitely had them going.
I streamed it too, by the way.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I saw stuff on there that I was like, I don't think that's mine or Headless's.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, again, thank you, everybody in the lives. That's what's up. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.